You're now listening to the Something Good Podcast Network. Please press any key to continue.
Hey folks, welcome back to the Couch Potatoes. Today, it's me and Cristy.
Hello.
We were doing a bonus episode of Netflix's Fall of the House of Usher, a fantastic series me and you watched. And a little bonus content for everybody. We've taken hiatus on History We've Forgotten Triple C for a little while just to make sure everybody's back in tune. But in the meantime, we wanted to knock this one out real quick. We really enjoyed the show. Anything the Netflix cast when it comes to horror and their miniseries are fantastic. House on Haunted Hill,
Bly
Manor, Midnight Mass, all fantastic series. All same cast pretty much, and they really knock it out of the park.
Yep.
But no, this one is Fall of the House of Usher, based on the loosely based.
Very loosely.
Creatively based. There we go. There's a better word. Creatively based on the Edgar Allan Poe series, Fall of the House of Usher, but also many of the other stories, each detailed in chapter of the title of every episode. So yeah, let's get into it. This series opens up really like a Stephen King series.
Yes.
Kind of like 1922. Kind of like that. Very good just, horror intro with the house, the grown versions of the children, and like it blinks into 3 different decades all at once.
Yes.
And we get to see the older versions of the brother and sister. I'm trying to think. Madeline and Roderick Usher. So we see the children version, their adult versions in 79-80, and their old versions in 2023.
Yep.
So this one is kind of loosely based on the story Fall of the House of Usher, but just enough to kind of create a base for everything.
Yep.
The cast list is fantastic. A lot of people from the, like we said, from Midnight Mass, Bly Manor and stuff. We got Kate Siegel, Willa Fitzgerald, Bruce Greenwood, fantastic TV actor, Zach Gilford from Friday Night Lights, Samantha Sloan, which is Tamerlane, who, if you want somebody to play a bitch, you get this woman to play, because she is so fucking hateable in everything she's in.
She really is.
But we also get Carla Gugino, which is another fantastic actress who's in a lot of like just stuff. Like she's always this like second or third tier listed actress. She was in Sin City, if you remember.
And of course we have the great Mark Hamill.
Yes.
Luke Skywalker himself.
This one playing someone who would stab Luke Skywalker in the face.
Yes,
he would. He's in this one.
He is this TV show's Alfred.
Yeah, in this show, but in this one, like Mark Hamill is like very villainous in this one. He kind of reminds me of the preacher from the Village of the Damned. Remember when he played that? He wanted to shoot them kids.
Yeah, I do remember that actually.
Yeah, Mark Hamill was a preacher who almost shot a child in the face. A couple of them actually. He was posted up and they used the devil on him and killed himself. Great movie. Christopher Reeves is in it when he could walk.
Rude.
He's dead.
Still rude.
But no, going into it, I'd watched this show just in passing one day. I was laid up from work a few days, and it's very easy to watch in the background, but then it starts getting compelling, and you're just like, I gotta stop what I'm doing
and pay attention.
Really fucking pay attention. But no, this series opens up with A Midnight Dreary, which is the fantastic
The Raven.
I remember seeing. Did you ever have to go to the plays?
When I was in college, we went to one, and it was
because we went to the one down here in Charlotte. In high school, we saw the Telltale Heart, the Raven, and a Mark Twain one. But it was like a 3 thing, like a triple feature.
I don't remember off the top of my head which one it was that I went for college, but we did go see one.
But yeah, so this one opens up with the court case. So our main characters, Roderick and Madeline are being sued because they run the Usher pharmaceutical company.
Yes.
I like this modern retelling just because it is a pharmaceutical company. It's a rich family who's basically the devil.
Yes.
And they are just lauded for this terrible, terrible drug. They're peddling Lucadone,
Which is an opioid.
yeah, which is basically Oxycontin.
Yeah.
And with that being said, it kind of plays in realities with the family that created Oxycontin, or the people that benefited from Oxycontin production in real life. I believe it was the Sawyer family that kind of blood money.
Yeah.
was the name of the game.
Yep.
But no, this series opens up. If I remember correctly, was the court case where the main guy, Greenwood, the guy that Greenwood's playing, Roger Usher,
Yes.
is the front runner, the man on the stand, basically. He's the one being sued.
Yes.
And his whole family is there to support him, all his children. And this is the crux of the show.
Yes.
The deaths of his children. And it is brutally sad
Yes.
throughout this show, but it's also very well done of how villainous they are, each
Yeah.
one of them, in their own way.
A couple of the kids, you're like, when are you going to kill them off? When? Hurry up.
So what I loved was they got Zach Gilford to play the young Roderick, who was in Midnight Mass.
Yes.
Who was the main character up to a certain episode. And he does a very sympathetic character. And he always plays someone that's kind of sad, but he's not really, like, he's redeemable.
Yes.
But by the time you watch the show, you're just like, oh no, he's a monster too.
Yep.
Yeah. We also get Carl Lumbly as Auguste Dupin, who's a big character in the actual stories of Edgar Allan Poe in one major.
He was an investigator.
Yeah. And this man is an investigative for the government.
Yes.
Under trying to figure out why is this drug killing people?
Yeah.
Is it dangerous? Have the Usher family really lied?
Yes.
Yeah.
And he used to be friends with Roderick Usher prior to this because they used to work together.
Yep. And so we get this quick opener of the court where it's like Dupin's like, the Ushers are the devil. They've created this terrible drug. They are villains and should be found guilty.
Yes.
And, just to kind of quick it up a little bit, we find out that he has all these children from different women, from 3 different women. And we also find out that he welcomes it with open arms. He is not one of those guys who's like, no, I don't have a bastard child. He's like, no, all bastard children are welcome in the Usher family.
Yes.
Which I think is kind of redeemable, and it kind of throws you off about Roger Usher and whether or not he's a villain or not, because his sister is a fucking monster.
Oh yes, absolutely she is.
Yeah. And she's played by Mary McDonnell. I think she was on that show, an investigation show with Kara Sedgwick.
Oh yeah. The Closer.
The Closer. Yeah, she's on that one. But what I like is, so we get the kids. Let's go ahead and start like time-wise. Let's start with the kid when they're children. So their mother has this disease, and she's just destroyed by it, decimated.
Yes.
And did you? I think that was like the scariest part for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it made it look like this like Stepford wife cul-de-sac they lived in, and it's not quite sunny outside, but it's not quite dark outside when you always see their house.
Yeah. It's
And-
always just a little bit overcast.
Yeah, it's always overcast because Edgar Allan Poe can't have sunshine in his life
No.
because he's a sad sack.
Well, his real life was really depressing.
He should have picked himself by his bootstraps and killed some people. He would have been fine. But no, every episode, like I said, is a title of one of his or a variation on title of some of his works. And what I like about this one, it's the first pilot episode, so we're getting a baseline of who we're dealing with. The children, who are mostly assholes.
Yes.
Some are sympathetic, some are not.
And some of their spouses who are also assholes.
Yes, that's you're bringing in a group of other third party people who are just getting slain with them, just taken down. And going into that, we see the mother has died.
Yes.
Brutally. She put her mind in faith, and we've talked about it before on Triple C, whereas this like the seed based preachers do that to their congregants. Give us money and pray Jesus takes the cancer away. I mean, that doesn't work. 99.999% of the time it doesn't work. And that's what happened to her. She let her faith kind of destroyed her because she told them vehemently, don't bring the hospital involved.
Yep.
And then we get this, then it turns into a Stephen King movie.
Yes.
So what do you think about how they did it when she died? Because you remember how she died. She dies brutally in the bed.
Yes. One of the things that never ceases to amaze me about the shows that they do, that the Netflix group does, I guess we'll say, they're very particular about the way a character faces the camera. It's very important the way they look at a certain point, especially if they die. Because when we watched Midnight Mass, when he hits that girl because he's drunk and he sees her laying over there, her face her eyes are open and she's staring at him, and he has to relive that look over and over and over again. And with this, it's the same thing, because the kids find her and every time they look around a corner or they relive it, they see that exact same facial expression with her looking like she does. Yeah,
it's like a trauma PTSD moment.
Yeah.
Like in the Batman movies.
Yes.
Check those episodes out, guys. Those movies were horrific.
But one of the things that it really got to me was, you start out, when you meet them at first, you have nothing but sympathy for them. Because, like you said, they're likable. But it takes a long time to break them down to just the center. Because, I mean, when Dupont talks about them in court, he's talking about, they're a crime family and they're scum and they're murderers and they're this and they're that. And then you see about their mom and everything. It's like, oh, how dare you try to make me feel emotions for murderers? How dare you?
Yeah.
Who do you think you are, Netflix?
Yeah. But I think it's a build-up story, kind of like when you watch like the Dahmer series, when you're like, oh wait, you mean he had a terrible accident when he was a child? Oh wait, that's why his brain is fucked. When you're just you're telling the story of a real life villain, even if it's fictional. It brandishes sympathy in a way.
Yeah.
But they erode that sympathy very quickly, except for Roderick. Roderick bounces back and forth to do this real gray area. Madeline, though, she's a cunt.
Yeah, she crawled into the gray area. She crawled into the darkness and stayed there.
Yeah. But what I love is, when the mom pops back up. So the kids have decided, I love Roderick, is just like this, I guess we got a barrier kind of situation. Like,
that's what you do, right?
Yeah, and so he takes pieces of wood off a shed and builds a makeshift coffin. Mm-hmm. Her and her brother, I will say, are very efficient and dig a hole.
Yes.
Not very deep, but they dig a hole. Mm-hmm. And they put her in this box that they built.
Yes.
And bury her like a foot deep.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, and then the rain comes.
Mm-hmm.
And what I like is they reach out to her boss, who's the neighbor at the end of the lane, and demand help. And because this guy is a villain, this guy's the corporate villain.
And they've been having an affair, and you could tell.
And then it cuts away, and then we don't get more to the story until later on.
Yeah.
But to say congruent, but the mom rises from the grave on one last breath and murders the man who may or may not be the father of her children.
Yes.
I love that. That is fantastic.
Well, that's the throwback to the actual Fall of the House of Usher story, which is when, in the actual Edgar Allan Poe story, the character of the best friend shows up and meets Roderick, and Madeline dies. And Roderick, they bury her. They put her in a casket, and they put her in the family crypt in the basement of this big old house. And then she's in there for several days, and Roderick keeps telling him, I hear something, I hear a noise, I hear her down there, I hear her down there. And his best friend's like, dude, you have flipped. No, you're just sad, you're just grieving. She's not down there. And then eventually he comes in there and he says, we buried her alive. And her ghost, evil spirit, whatever, comes back to get him, because there's a whole bunch of other bad stuff going on between those two in the story.
I like how they changed it from Usher and his friend to Usher and Dupin.
Yes.
Because they are friends, technically, because
Yes.
they tried to fight the good fight as adults, and one chose a different path than the other.
Yes.
And one has been chasing the rabbit ever since. But yeah, so like going into the first episode, we see like images of Roderick's like PTSD acting up.
Yes.
Because this movie, kind of like some other stories, starts in the middle and works its way back and forth, which is a fun way of doing storytelling if you're doing a series. If you're doing a movie, it's fucking awful. Yeah, but this one really paid off. And this is why I kind of like Netflix releasing it all at once, because I'm going to be really pissed if I got to wait for episodes.
Yes.
So wait on Stranger Things. Can't wait for the next soundtrack to that. But yeah, so going into the next episode and kind of the progression of the story, we find out that Roderick is basically, because the main story is Dupin and Roderick in an old house, and Roderick saying in the first episode, "I'm going to tell you the real story of how my children died." And then we realize, oh, this is the end.
Yeah.
And we're getting the story of the fall of the House of Usher, drizzled with other stories and allegories for his original tales. And it's very well done.
Yeah. Well, before we go to the next episode, one of the most important things that happens in the actual trial part, quote, quote, is Dupin says, we have an informant from within the family that's going to testify against the Ushers.
Yes, and this kind of acts as kind of like a scam almost.
Yeah.
Or it's very, very troublesome for one.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there's someone on the inside that knows too much and is giving out and is bleeding the place dry.
Yep, and everybody goes absolutely ballistic trying to find out who this person is.
Yeah, what I like about it is Mark Hamill goes fucking feral.
Yes.
He's like, everybody at the house, family dinner, we're fucking signing contracts, and you know he does this legalese where it's just like, oh no, if any of you get found out as the informant, we will fucking murder you.
Yes.
In the most legal way possible. You know, you will be nothing, you are nothing, you will be forgotten in time.
Yes.
Like Jesus Christ. But I will say, Mark Hamill's character has a very, very scary but weird past. Let's go into that real quick. Let's go into some of the characters later as we go on, but I want to go into this first. Mark Hamill plays a character, Arthur Pym. Arthur Pym in the literary content is a villain.
Yes, he is.
But he's one of the upmost villains. We find out through a conversation, and we get little speckles of it, where we hear Roderick and Dupin talking, like, hey, do you remember that expedition across the world and all the terrible stories and how like they barely survived and all this and all that? And it's like it's building up like a legend story almost about Arthur Pym.
Yes.
Arthur Pym was part of that, and Roderick literally says, "Oh yeah, I would tell my kids horror stories about the stuff Arthur was involved in to scare them." And it builds up this legend of Arthur Pym. But no, Arthur Pym survived a Donner level fucking Holocaust.
Yeah.
Like it was SA, cannibalism,
Yes.
murder on just the most horrid places on earth, may or may not have burned down the village. Like,
Yep.
yeah, so Arthur Pym is very unique as a villain, but he's not really the villain of the story. He is just a villain for hire.
Yeah.
He's the henchman. He's the Igor. And which I love because he has his own story when we get to the end. But Arthur Pym, the build up alone on him.
Yeah, they did a great job.
I focused on that when they started talking. I'm like, no, hold on. I get it. You guys are evil, and this guy's trying to do an investigation. I get it. You know, there's an informant, there's a rat. I get that. But go back and talk about how this man like murdered or may have murdered people on his team to eat them, may have committed atrocities on the level of the Nazis. Maybe like tell me about Arthur Pym. And it's a big distraction for a second.
Yeah.
Like on the second watch, it's not. But on that first watch, it's like, who's the devil? Really?
Are we sure?
But we do get flashes of Verna. Verna, played by Carla Gugino, is a play on the word raven. She is the crux. She is the, I don't want to say protagonist, but she's not the protagonist either. She is the judge of the.
She is consequence.
She is consequence of the utmost.
Yes. She is karma in its human form.
And her and Arthur Pym have a conversation.
Oh God.
That we'll talk about later on that episode. But that conversation is hilarious.
Yes. It's also skin crawling, but it's also hilarious.
But we get little vestiges of her. And on the next episode, go into the next episode.
The next one is Mask of the Red Death, which is one of my absolute favorite Edgar Allan Poe stories.
Tell us about the real story, the real Mask of the Red Death story.
So the real
reference.
The real story is there is a city and there is a plague going on in this city. And what happens is your fingers and your extremities and like your around your eyes and your mouth turn blood red. And it's kind of like a play on the Black Death. And you die. So this is all happening in the city. And these really stupid rich people all get together and they go into this castle led by the guy who runs the village. And they have a great big throwdown. And they bring in the finest foods, the best alcohol, and they basically just have a full-on sex, drugs, and rock and roll party.
Yeah, like one does.
As one does. And they literally seal off this house or the castle, and they won't let anybody in because they're scared that they're going to get infected. So they're going to party hard while everybody else outside dies and starves to death. Well, while they're in there having this party, this guest comes, and everybody's wearing masks. And while they're having this party, this person comes in a mask that's a skull. And they have a hood where you can't see around it, and everything's dark. And this creature goes from room to room, and people die in every room this creature goes to. And it goes into the main dining hall where the guy who's running the party is, and all the food turns to bugs and rocks and stuff like that. And the main guy tries to run, and his wife runs into the thing, and it gives her the plague. So then the plague spreads through the entire castle, and he's the last one to die. And he's laying on his back and he's dying, and they have this life and death conversation about why does life matter? Why does death matter? And he's like, I've lived my life and I've done everything I ever wanted to do. I can die happy. It's fine. And he reaches up and he pulls the mask off the thing, and there's no face. It's just empty blackness. And it says, well, you may have had your fun here, but hell's going to be, it's not going to be worth all the partying that you did in hell. And he dies.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the story.
And it's very fitting for this episode alone.
Oh, yes. That's one of the reasons why this is my favorite episode.
So the youngest child of Roderick is Prospero.
Oh.
What a name. Mm-hmm. They name him Perry. But Prospero is just like, it sounds like an old South asshole name, like Menelaus.
Well, it's a throwback to, Cask of Amontillado.
Yeah. So every name and every like little thing is reference to an Edgar Allan Poe work.
Yes. Not necessarily the story episode name, but
no, everything is just a little bit Easter egg for everything. Mm-hmm. Especially when it comes to the Annabelle Lee, Lenore, but even like the Usher family, other characters, Tamerlane. These are all names referenced in the context of the universe that Edgar Allan Poe wrote.
Yep.
Okay. But yeah, this one the story you told is very fitting for the episode, and they were able to do it in an analogy way that it really fit, because Prospero is a sex, drugs, and rock and roll guy.
Yes.
And he's a deviant to like the utmost degree. Out of all of them, he's the worst when it comes to deviancy.
I would say yes.
The others have their kinks, but he is a deviant.
Yes.
And he decides to throw a throwdown.
Yep.
Because he finds out that the company the Usher family owns is an old warehouse that's never been touched. an old chemical testing warehouse. They decide to throw a throwdown, and under the guise of like he wants to make a business of partying through liquor, which isn't quite true. That's what he tells his father as a way to get money, and his father's like, "That's a dumb idea." But he didn't tell his father the real deal, where it's all about blackmail and ruining people's lives through the guise of a party. And to just do the Mask of the Red Death part, because we get like little story elements later on.
Yes.
But in this episode, he meets Verna in passing.
Yes.
Verna is wearing a hooded cloak.
Yes.
A skull mask, because this is a masquerade party.
Yeah, you have to wear a mask. It's required.
Yeah. And she wears a death's head skull.
Yes.
What bothered me about this thing, it looks like the death's head sigil on a Nazi's uniform.
It reminded me more of the skeleton face mask from Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah. But the way the teeth are, and they're all going all the way back. Yeah. Yeah. That's what it reminded me of, from a certain posture, the way she moves, it's like a side eye. So yeah, that's what it kind of reminded me of.
Yeah.
But she ends up cornering him in one of the rooms that were used to blackmail and ruin someone's life. And she ends up telling him basically the speech from Mask of the Red Death. Yep. It's like, no. You're new and shiny. You're going to know me for a while.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go, and I'll see you on the next go around. And it's a very like fuck you kind of way, because she's teasing him into his own ruin.
Yes.
Which I love. And that's a way a real like villain does, or even, Consequence. It's like teases them in, because, well, I'll go ahead and talk about it now. They're all up for grabs by Verna. Verna is here to collect a bargain. And it was a bargain made by Madeline and Roderick in the New Year's of 1979, 1980. And let's talk about that for a minute before we go into the horrificness that happens next.
Yes.
I love the opener to this, because because we don't really know why they're there. They go into a dive bar called The Raven. It's New Year's Eve, 79 to 80. Back in the New York Groove is playing. They're in the rough part of the town. They're coming back from a costume party, and they're just like
Gatsby
and the shitty girlfriend who got him murdered.
Flapper dress girl.
Yeah. Flapper girl. But they just come back from doing something terrible. We're not quite sure what. Yeah. But it's something terrible.
Yeah, we don't find that out till the last episode.
But the music changes, and who's at the bar? Verna. And Verna is the Faust devil situation.
Yes.
She slides in. You don't really see her. They don't see her. And Madeline, being Madeline, who's, the upmost character, the strongest one of the two. Yes. Says, "Hey, bitch, be cool," to her brother.
Yes. Because he's freaking out.
Yeah. And he does a fantastic job of showing that worry on his face, because he's like puppy dog face. Yeah. The actor has puppy dog face.
He really does.
But what I love is the sound on this one is you hear it in the background. Another brick in the wall. Doom, 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 doom. Doom, doom, doom. And it's just enough of the bass line to make you very uncomfortable. Yes. Because like I heard it the first time, I'm just like, another brick in the wall. Why are they playing that? And they're having this conversation back and forth. And I'm just like, the bass line alone took me out of the song and just took me in the scene. And it's ruining my life. Like
everything's on fire.
Like, holy shit, this is the devil you're talking to. Yes. Go the other goddamn direction. But stay for a drink.
It reminds me of the bar scene from The Shining.
Yeah, where he's talking to one of the staff.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot of that.
Hey, Jack, have a drink. Yeah. Stay a while. Have another drink. Been a while, hasn't it? And, and that's from the Stanley Kubrick Shining. The book is a whole totally different game.
Oh, absolutely.
But a good description of the scene though. But it's the man behind the bar, or in this case, the woman. Yep. And she's able to give off that air of villainy. And we find out that Verna is timeless. She is a being of immortality because she made her face known to Prospero. Not an age, not a decade shown on that face. And we find out that she's setting up to make a deal, which is shown in multiple episodes, how the deal goes down. But we'll go ahead and go into it for time's sake. But she corners Madeline first. Because Madeline's like, hey, the ball's about to drop. We need somebody to kind of get some eyes on. She basically tells her brother, go hit up that girl over there and make out with her when the ball drops because we need witnesses.
We need an alibi.
We need an alibi, which is a great name for a bar. The alibi. Shit. And what I love about this is it's just like, no, go do that real quick on command. Hey, go rizz up this bitch real quick. You know what I'm saying? Like the new kids say, hey, go get you a piece of ass real quick. Like, it's just going to happen. And it's 1979.
Yeah.
Okay. And apparently he can do it. That's another thing. He is just very, like, unassuming. And he's literally jamming out with this girl in the back. And Madeline's alone with the bartender, Verna.
Yes.
Fuck me, that conversation. Oh, what do you want? You want money or power? Power she wants. And that's what Verna targets. And what gets me is it's like, they don't have any interaction with her before this. At any point.
Yeah.
Except when they buried their mom and there's a raven watching them do it. And it's just like, how long has this bitch been riding high waiting for these motherfuckers?
Yeah.
And the deal she makes. And she makes out with Madeline, which throws her off. She throws her off her game.
Yes.
But Madeline was down for it because Madeline is a fiend.
Yeah.
She's about the good times in her own way.
Yes.
But Back in the New York Groove playing was fucking hilarious to me because I'm like, there's so many other fucking songs in this that I know are going to be just awesome.
Yes.
But we get to the point where the bar is empty and it's closing time. And they're sitting at a table still talking to the bartender. And she offers them this kind of like, what if scenario. Kind of like, you know, like a conversation we would have, like, if you were president, if you did this, if you had this.
Oh, God, I couldn't imagine me being president.
But if you had this, what would you do? And what would you pay to do it? And
see, the conversations we have is like, if you had a flamethrower, what would you do with it? But their conversation is much more interesting and not as scary.
I would hunt a chupacabra. But with this one, it's the ultimate, you get everything you want in life. But it comes at a cost. And what we know about Roderick is he has 2 children and a wife. Madeline doesn't.
Yeah.
What is it going to cost to put the Usher name where it belongs? Technically, they've already made their world by the time they go to the bar. They set in motion. But what Verna offers is a life without consequence.
Yeah.
Until I come calling. Which is, if that's not an Edgar Allan Poe story, that's perfect.
It definitely is.
Boy, let me tell you what. That's what exactly the story is.
Yes, absolutely.
And the way she talks is very. If you like, or to do like a rhythm thing, she has a weird cadence.
Yes.
If you notice, and it's like an ebb and flow when she's talking, and it's kind of like she's singing because that bass line's still there.
Yeah.
Just enough. And it fades out, and she's got this drink she pours out. She's like, you never believe where I got this. And it's just like that came off the hands of a dead captain of the Titanic. Cold, dead hands. He was drinking it while the ship was going down. She's like, that's mine, bitch.
Yep.
But so she offers them a drink and tells them, and basically shakes their hand and makes a blood pact with them that they will never, ever have to experience consequence in their life for any decision they make as long as they give up their children. Madeline's already made the decision not to have children, so she's not in the game. Roderick is the one that has to shake her hand.
Yes.
Because he's got the most to lose. And I think that's why I love about Roderick is why that's the reason he invites his family in so he can know them and not worry about a bastard innocent being murdered.
Yes.
And that's why he allows them in. But yeah, going back to Mask of the Red Death part, it turns out that through happenstance and idiocy,
Yes, literally.
they've hooked up the sprinkler system to a corrosive chemical. And his idea was everybody starts doing drugs, the sprinklers come on, and that's when everything's supposed to happen.
Well, it was supposed to be water.
It was supposed to be water. But the sprinklers pump out this terrible liquid. And as you described in Mask of the Red Death, everyone is murdered.
Yes.
Except for one. Prospero's sister-in-law lives.
This idiot.
Yeah, she is the wife of... hold on one second.
He's got a messed up name.
Frederick Usher.
Yes.
Frederick.
Frederick.
That's what they call him, Froderick, because he's a fraud.
Yeah.
But his wife tags along on just vice alone.
Well,
She's kind of like coerced.
Prospero leads her to believe that they will sleep together at this function.
But it's also, a time to let loose and no consequence. Much like what Verna offers is a world of no consequence.
But he tells her that basically it's going to be him, and he's like, hey, I'm having this thing, come find me there. And then he says, or not me, anybody at all. But the whole idea of her being there is to find him.
Yeah, it's Morrell Usher. But no, she is horribly disfigured.
Yes.
We see that right after this terrible fucking thing, that we find out that this is Arthur Pym's zone of interest.
Yes.
It's his bag, it's his bread and fucking butter.
Yes, it is.
To clean up these shit messes, and what a mess to clean up. He blames it on drugs and alcohol, that, Prospero did this, without the ushers knowing. And this is all in the back of the court case. They're all being followed.
Yes.
But it's also, that's one down. Who else is the informant?
Yeah.
And now it's the kids going after each other. And we find out there's a faction of children. The faction of the children of Annabelle Lee versus the bastards. And the other kids have kind of factioned up a little bit.
Yeah.
I would call them the non-white kids because they're all mixed. But yeah, so we're getting the ones who are just kind of diametrically opposite are Froderick and Tamerlane. Tamerlane is dangerous.
Yes.
Tamerlane is a monster.
Yes, she is.
I think her meeting Verna is the way she meets Verna was better than the way Prospero met Verna.
Oh, yeah.
Because Tamerlane would have smacked the fuck out of her.
Well, Prospero doesn't really pay much attention to what she says.
Well, he's all about vice.
Yeah, he's just trying to sleep with her.
Yeah, but he's not seeing like the danger.
Yeah.
Tamerlane, if she had met her as Verna, she would have seen the danger and done something.
Yeah.
But she sees her as this other thing because Verna is a master of disguise.
Yes.
And can change her appearance.
Yes.
But yeah, go into the next episode. What's it called?
Murder in the Rue Morgue.
Yeah, let's go into that story real quick.
So that story is basically a group. This is where you meet Arthur Pym for the first time because he's doing investigation on murders that have started going on in London. And he's basically Edgar Allan Poe's Sherlock Holmes.
Yep.
Before Sherlock Holmes. And people are being murdered viciously, like torn apart. And the police can't figure it out. They don't understand how a human could do this, and they're trying to figure out what's happening. And Arthur Pym is investigating and looking into it. And then he figures out that a monkey has escaped from a genetic testing laboratory, or from a testing laboratory. They don't say genetic testing. A testing laboratory in London. And this creature is killing people brutally and violently. And it turns into a story of this is what happens to you when you experiment on animals, even back in that time period, because Edgar Allan Poe was very much against hurting animals in any form or fashion, even though most of his stories that he wrote about are about hurting animals. But he wrote that in the idea of it's a mystery story and you never will guess the ending because there's 15 suspects. And he goes through the thing where everybody would, which is who are their spouses? Are their spouses weird? Are they doing this? Are they doing that? How about people that they know? It's a basic murder true crime story until you find out it's really a monkey being a monkey.
And another, nail on the head of the coffin on this one, like, it really fits the episode.
Yes, it does.
Because there are 15 suspects who killed Prospero, or in this case, who is telling on the family.
Yeah, who's the informant.
And it's the Ushers, their children, the aunt, Pim, the spouses, and it kind of adds up to about 15 motherfuckers.
And you've got people, in this particular episode, you've got animal rights activists, you've got reporters, and stuff like that too.
So what I like about this one is it pits two of the children. It gets Victorine, who's the surgeon,
yes,
who gets her own episode, as they all do,
yep.
and Camille. I did not recognize Camille in this show because she was the nice girl who gets killed in Midnight Mass.
Yes,
she's so nice, and she loses a baby and all these terrible things happen to her.
Yeah, it's
brutal. And I'm just like, oh no, she plays a cunt in this. Like, she's a real bitch.
She had to get her acting range.
Yeah. Sharp as a fucking knife, though.
Oh, yes.
She is super dangerous. She runs a media empire, and she's one of this one is as the spin on Prospero's death, which I like. Napoleon Usher's just like, I'm not going to spin this, you piece of shit. Like, Prospero was my brother. He died.
Yeah.
And Arthur Pym's like, you're going to nut up or shut up.
Yeah, you're not with us, you're against us.
Yeah, you're going to lose everything. And Napoleon is another piece of shit.
Yes, he is.
But Camille, this is Camille's backdrop and ending. But we find out in this one that she has a file on all her brothers and sisters, especially Victorine. She does not like Victorine for some reason. Victorine is a medical practitioner and experimental surgeon. She is married to another woman who is also part of that medical group. And they've been working at the Rue Morgue, the Usher, basically genetic laboratory.
Yeah, pretty much.
But it's called Rue Morgue instead of the Rue Morgue, like the Red Morgue.
Yes.
So what I think it was a good play on the word, and it was a good facility jump. And we get her, and her assistants. I love her assistants. Her assistants are basically indentured servitudes.
Yes,
servants, and she uses them for sexual activities too. Like they're all purpose assistant.
Yeah, literally.
And they're fucking. They hate her so fucking. They do. But they end up like falling in love with each other and leaving, and she's like, God damn it.
It's so hard to find good help these days.
Yeah, and she fucking basically cash apps them their fucking severance and tells them to fuck off, and she's going to do everything herself.
Yes.
And she goes prancing down to the Rue Morgue. And this is when Verna is an NPC.
Yes.
Just another story character. But she's that master of disguise. Oh, I wouldn't go in there if I was you.
Yeah.
She's
pretending to be a security guard.
Yeah, and it's the warning. She gave you a chance. She kind of gave one to Prospero. Like, hey, maybe you stay in here. Maybe you don't do this.
Yeah, but he didn't have enough blood in his brain.
No one would. But she sees her as a lesser, and that's kind of like the downfall of Camille. She sees this security guard as a lowly person.
Yeah.
That she don't have to take her fucking orders. But she thinks there's something up with Camille. And it's just the hate of her sister that really drives her. Yeah. And so she ends up being murdered by a fucking ape.
Well, she goes in the wrong door.
Yeah. But she ends up still getting murdered by a fucking ape.
Yep. And they show it, and it's, wow.
What I love about her death, she said, fuck it. And it just happened. Everyone else was terrible. Hers, she didn't give a fuck. Okay? She knew it was coming.
Yeah, she did.
And another thing we see is Verna shapeshifts in the shadow part because she's in the and she's describing the plight of these animals, and Camille turns her fucking back on her, and she like just Olympic jumps on the fucking island that's in there, and that's it, gone, got her. Yep. And we end up with another kind of, oh wait, this terrible thing has happened. But in these 3 episodes, the baseline is Roderick Usher, talking to Dupin and telling him these terrible things.
Yes.
and Usher slowly losing his goddamn mind while he's talking to his former friend. Mm-hmm. And it's so fucking sad. Yeah. And I love Dupin for like his character stays. Mm-hmm. You know, the writing is fantastic. It's just a conversation between two friends, former friends who are now against each other, mm-hmm. with every terrible thing happening. But Usher not bowing down to it. He's just like, oh, you want to hear a fucking story, brother?
Yeah.
And you can have it all. Like, he's basically given him carte blanche to every terrible thing he's ever done. But it's just fascinating the way it's done.
Yes.
To me, it's fascinating.
Yes.
Because it's three backdrops. It's past, present, and everything that's happened in between.
Yes.
Peppered in.
It's a nice throwback to the actual Fall of the House of Usher story, because that's one of the big things in that story is Roderick Usher sits down with his friend and he's telling him, you know, my family's been here for generations and we've done this and we've done that. And I've watched everybody in my family die and my sister's sick and I've seen this and I've seen that. And you were such a good friend to help me and be here when you were here and all this. Of course, in this particular version, they don't discuss the really messed up stuff that's going on in Fall of the House of Usher, the actual story, but because that's the mystery that the friend finds out later. But I do like that conversation thing is a throwback to that story, which really was just extra gravy or extra glitter or whatever you want to call it.
And because these episodes are written the way they are and performed, we will just go ahead and just like straight up do each one's tale because it's hard to explain, like going back to every conversation he's having. Yeah, because they do break it up.
Yeah, they do.
But this one this one seems like a slapstick episode.
I'm sorry. Anybody who this is the black cat. Anyone who's ever had a cat will tell you there are two kinds of cats.
One is an asshole.
There is a cat in this world that is the loving, sweet, do anything for you, lay on your lap and be sweet and be cute. And then there's the demonic thing straight from hell that has come to your house to run it. And if you get to live there, you're lucky.
Yeah, it's the Cujo version.
Yes.
But no, this is the story of Napoleon's downfall.
Yeah.
One of the hallucinations Roderick has is the first four dead. Mm-hmm. And this is the third one dead.
Yes.
Napoleon's death is, I don't know, it seemed like happenstance, really, because his wasn't about consequence. His was just trying to hide something that went too far. The way he died because he didn't have the guts to tell the guy he was fucking that, hey, I murdered your cat by accident.
Well, that's literally, this one is probably the closest to the literal story. Mm. And in the story of the black cat, the narrator, the author, whatever, gets this cat, and the cat is just the sweetest thing in the whole world. And it's solid black. There's no white on it anywhere. And he's going through stuff, and he's at home one night, and he kills it in kind of like a sleepwalking thing. And when he wakes up the next morning, he realizes he's killed it. So he does a pet cemetery, and he goes and he buries it, and then he comes back home. Well, the cat's there. And he's like, how the hell are you here? But he's like, well, maybe you weren't dead. Maybe, I just maimed you up a little bit. And now this cat is evil, and it's literally the representation of you did something horrible and you're trying to hide it. So just admit that you are a deviant and did something bad and move on with it, or keep denying it and let your own guilt eat you up. Yeah. Because one of the things I always loved about the story is he names the cat Pluto. And I had a black cat named Pluto just because of the story. But the cat has a white patch. The new cat has a white patch on its chest. And the way its fur starts to fall is it looks like a hangman's noose.
Yeah.
So every time he sees this cat is literally the embodiment of all the things he's ever done wrong.
And that's exactly what happens to him. This cat comes back in a way. Mm-hmm. Hides in the walls. He hallucinates because he's on drug benders constantly.
Yes.
Because that's how he kills the cat. Instead of sleepwalking, he's on a drug bender.
Yes.
And he's bashing holes in the wall. Eventually, his boyfriend shows back up, but it's too late.
Well, every time he gets a hole in the wall and he reaches in to get this cat, the cat's clawing him up.
And what we see is the boyfriend sees the dead body of Verna, the person who gave him the cat, for a flash, for a second. But he doesn't pay attention long enough because his boyfriend's fucking hallucinating and ends up falling out of a balcony window.
But one of the things that I love about it is they zoom in on him after he's after this cat because he's going to kill it again. And the cat's sitting on the banister rail, and he runs for it, and he trips and falls and lands on the ground, and he dies. Well, they do that long panel zoom from way up, and then they finally zoom in on his body, and the only thing that's hurt on him is where his impact, where he landed.
Yeah.
There's no cuts, there's no blood.
Yeah.
It's all a big hallucination.
Yeah. And that's the end of Napoleon.
Yep.
But we also get Verna's other... We also get some more stuff about Verna. Mm-hmm. She's been visiting other kids.
Yes.
Mainly Camille. But not Camille, but Victorine.
Yes.
Victorine. She poses as a woman in medical need. And we find out that, going into the next episode, that Victorine's been working on a project for Roderick, a special project. Mm-hmm. We find out that Roderick has the same disease his mom has. Terrible disease that he'll eventually die of.
Yes.
And he's scared shitless. Mm-hmm. But with that being said, the Telltale Heart.
Your favorite episode.
Oh, it's fantastic. Because there's there's this weird clicking noise. And that's it.
Yep.
Playing constantly throughout the episode. Mm-hmm. And we're not quite sure what it is, but we hear it in passing, and then we start hearing it as a hallucination of Victorine. Mm-hmm. And then we find out what it really is.
Yes.
I said it earlier, but when I was in high school, we came down here to Charlotte to the theater and watched The Telltale Heart as a play. Mm-hmm. And there was a scene where he removes the floorboards and grabs the heart that's still beating. Mm-hmm. And he lifts it up. Now, this is a live action theater play. The lights go black in the theater, except on his hand. Mm-hmm. They spotlight his hand and shine a more precise light on it, and there's a shine. And, you're just sitting in a theater watching a play and see that. That's visceral.
Yes.
And that's a very good way to do that. I recommend anybody go see a play of Edgar Allan Poe's work. Mm-hmm. I'm a big play guy. I like reading them, but this was very well done. Mm-hmm. And the guy acted his ass off doing it. And as a horror story, that's very fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
But, he takes out the steel beating heart. Mm-hmm. And oh, man, it's fucking fantastic.
Yeah.
But in this one, Camille ends up trying to... Because we see that she's murdered a bunch of apes. Mm-hmm. To make a fake medical trial for a mesh that goes around the heart that forces it to beat. Mm-hmm. Basically, a heart that runs forever.
Yeah.
And so she ends up lying about some of the stuff they've been doing.
Yes.
About successes. And Roderick is having a kind of an epiphany while this is happening. Mm-hmm. Because Camille, fun fact, Camille gets swindled by Verna as a hapless woman who needs surgery.
She would be the perfect human test.
And this is to skip the whole FDA trials, basic medical stuff, and put it out there. Mm-hmm. And what I like is around this time, Roderick's in like a lucid state where he's very kind of like happy. Because I'll skip to it because she ends up having an argument with her wife and murders her.
Yes.
And proceeds to take her to a bedroom, open her chest cavity, and put that mesh, that prototype, on her heart.
To try to bring her back.
And that's what we're hearing the whole time. And she's been trying to ignore it until Roderick says, "Hey, what's that fucking noise?"
Yeah, and then she does that. Oh, you hear it too.
Oh yeah, I'm not crazy, you fucking bitch. And he goes to the back room and he sees this just like Hellraiser nightmare scene where this woman's heart, like whole chest, is wide the fuck open.
Yes, surgically cut open, but she's also been there for a while, so she's...
But the rib cage is cut open and it's been pried open.
Yes.
With a medical device, an extractor.
Yep.
And you could see the heart just sitting there, moving with that mesh around it. The thing that's going to save his life eventually.
Yes.
If it gets that far. And it's inside of a murdered woman who's his technically daughter-in-law.
Yes.
What a fucking pull.
Oh, the actress that does it is absolutely amazing. Because one of the things that always trips me up in horror movies is, or any movie really, is when somebody dies and there's always that person who, they're fine, it's okay, we can fix it, it's going to be okay. That's one of the reasons why Pet Sematary bothered me so much as a kid. Because it's constantly the out loud denial of, it's okay, I can help, I can fix it, it's going to be okay. And she does that. But she does it with, oh, my wife's in here in this room, she's fine. And she goes in there and has a conversation with her dead body and gets angry at her because she's not responding to her. And she's covered in blood, and it's just the most effed up brain thing that you can see. Because Roderick is like the rest of us who's normal and lucid going,
yeah, it's a lot of, it's going to be okay, it's going to be okay. He's like, no, the fuck it's not, bitch.
It's really not.
You're going to jail. But
Forever.
But she decides to cut herself open.
Yes.
And murders herself in front of Roderick.
Yes.
Which is just a wild scene by itself.
Oh, God.
Just separate, there's two separate things, but like, that's fucking wild.
Yes.
But that's the death of Victorine. This one, the Gold Bug, is more elaborate because it's just about mental instability.
Yes.
But with Gold Bug, it's about Tamerlane, the second oldest.
Yes.
And what's going on in the background of this one is her sister-in-law, Moelle, the wife of Froderick, is still alive. And Froderick has been torturing her in the background and keeping his daughter in the dark.
Yeah. Lenore.
What I love is, all right, so there's three things happening. One is Arthur Pym has identified Verna as this timeless asshole.
Yes.
Who's met with multiple terrible people. Second, his daughter-in-law, Moelle, is being tortured by Froderick. And Lenore is being kept out of the loop.
She knows something's wrong, but she can't exactly figure what out.
Yeah. And we're getting the build, we're slowly losing children.
Yes.
And we're getting a little bit more backstory of what Roderick and Madeline did before they got to that bar. And we find out, we'll go apart talk about it now, why the song Another Brick in the Wall is so important. Is he ends up murdering his boss.
Yes.
Because Roderick betrayed Dupin during an investigation and saved the company. Madeline was able to drunkenly talk the boss into telling everyone that Roderick saved the company. And he is the number one guy for the company. All to kind of corner and corral him to the basement and murder him in the most vicious fucking way possible.
Which is an actual method that somebody dies in another Edgar Allan Poe story.
Yeah, and so like it's very, whoever did this was able to Easter egg their way into the perfect storytelling.
Yes,
if you wanted to combine all of the stuff in one book.
Yeah, it's like how do you? This is like the ultimate fan fiction.
Well, technically it is, and it's fantastic.
It is, but they wall him up in the wall.
Yeah, so he's dressed like a jester, and that's
cask of Amontillado.
And that's another thing. We hear bells every now and then through the show.
Roderick hears them off in the distance.
And all them motherfuckers are hallucinating.
Yes. Not the ones on drugs either.
and what I like is, so they're showing how they do it. The big fuck you. And he wakes up, and him and his sister are working together to build a wall to trap this motherfucker in. And I don't know if you noticed, but it's like, I got a weird vibe between the brother and sister, because it seemed like when they were doing like physical activity, they are locked in step.
Yes.
This is like watching a band play, they are fucking working with each other. 1, 2, 1, 2. And it's so different than Roderick's children, who are all just trying to cut each other's fucking throat open.
Yes.
But like, these are the most dangerous people. Mm-hmm. Like, if they were born in different circumstances, they would be the fucking brother and sister from, what is it? Sarah Michelle Gellar, Brian Philippe.
Cruel Intentions.
Cruel Intentions. That's what they would be.
Yes.
They would be those assholes. Mm-hmm. And they probably would have succeeded.
Probably.
Yeah, that's exactly who those fucks are.
Yes.
But no, this is the Goldbug. Mm-hmm. I wasn't familiar with the Goldbug story.
I'm not as familiar. I know a little bit about it, but not enough to talk with any intelligence.
But with Tamerlane, let's talk real quick. We did an episode about Midnight Mass. The woman that plays Tamerlane.
If you have not seen it, please go watch it or go listen to it.
Samantha Sloan.
Yes. Is fabulous.
Is a awful but fantastic actress who can play someone who's awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Yes. She makes you hate her so well.
Tamerlane, the Catholic nun, technically, versus Tamerlane Usher is fascinating. She's in another movie, a horror movie. I believe it's called Maud. I don't know if you've seen that.
She was in that?
I think that was that her. If not, she was in the movie Hush.
Oh yeah,
with the girl that played Camille, because Camille's the girl that's deaf. Mm-hmm. But yeah, she's in Midnight Club, which is another Netflix drama series. House on Haunted Hill, or The Haunting of Hill House.
Yes.
Sorry, she's in that. But goddamn, what a bitch!
Oh yes, absolutely.
That's how I know she's a fantastic actress. I hate her.
Yes,
just like Lena Headey, but she was trying to make Westeros great again.
Oh my god.
Or the wife from Breaking Bad.
Yes.
But yeah, so in this one, we find out that early on that one of Tamerlane's kinks is she likes watching her husband have dinner and then sex with a woman pretending to be her. Mm-hmm. And we see this with a call girl in the beginning. Mm-hmm. And it's like, okay, this is explaining their kink. But we don't know that it's sex. We think it's just like a dinner thing. Mm-hmm. And we think it's like a mentality thing.
Yeah.
But then Verna shows up because the other girl's busy.
Yeah.
And Verna's a little too fucking good at it.
Yes.
And immediately Tamerlane is just sitting in the back watching this and is like playing 3-knuckle shuffle, trying to get this and like getting it. Yeah. Like we see it. Like you see her just like, if you see her like just lean back, and I'm just like, God damn. To quote the Irish woman, frothing at the gash. Fucking gone, bro. Alex is listening to this in the background trying to work, and I can see it's like I'm never getting anything done. If we lived together, he would never get work done. Just frothing at the gish.
God damn it! I'm on a Zoom call.
That chair was made of fabric, but she would have slipped out of it. God damn, you could drown a toddler down there.
Scotchgard can't even fix that.
Nope. No wrinkle protection. No wrinkle protection. Anyway, there's a stain left. Anyway, but we find out that she's trying to release like a cosmetic product, like a kind of like a subscription service.
Yeah.
Called Goldbug. Mm-hmm. And she's supposed to give this great speech or whatever, and she's having this heart-to-heart with Madeline. Madeline really likes Tamerlane because Tamerlane is the tough daughter.
Yeah.
And she takes a lot of pride in Tamerlane because Madeline doesn't take a husband. Madeline doesn't have children. Madeline doesn't have anyone except for Roderick. Yeah. But it turns out another hallucinating mess. Mm-hmm. She sees Verna again, and she assumes that her husband has been having a real affair with her.
Yeah.
And she goes in front of this group of people during like the launch day, even though her brothers and sisters have died brutally. Mm-hmm. And we find out the case is on like dismissal after the death of Victorine.
Yeah.
The double homicide.
Yeah.
But another thing that's happening is Dupin is getting real fucking tired of Broderick. He's like, get to the fucking point. And two things are happening while they're having the conversation. There's a noise coming from the basement.
Yes.
And Roderick gives a one-sentence response. Oh, that's Madeline. Oh, she's just toiling away at some project. And he's like, okay. And Roderick is getting text messages from his granddaughter. Lenore. And this was probably the sad part, and we'll get to that at the end. But that played in the backdrop for every episode. Mm-hmm. What a setup!
Yes,
fantastic, like horror setup. Mm-hmm. It kind of plays with like Telltale Heart, Massacre of either the or the ching ching or the bells. It's very simple. Mm-hmm. But it's fucking terrifying. Yes. If you keep doing it. And like on a second watch through, you're starting to hear them more. Mm-hmm. And it's like, God damn it. But no, we find out that Tamara Lane has a nervous breakdown in her apartment where she starts seeing Verna everywhere. Yes. And eventually they do this really cool scene where she's on her bed and there's a mirror above the bed for weird kink reasons. And so she throws something at the
fireplace poker.
She throws it at the fucking glass. The glass shatters into a massive piece, and because she's lost her footing, and it's kind of like that slow-mo, right? Mm-hmm.
It's like Final Destination.
Yeah. But she slowly falls back into the bed, the evergreen color scheme everywhere, and it's a shard coming down upon her. Mm-hmm. Because she killed herself. Mm-hmm. She let their paranoia get to her. She let everything just pile on her. And she had a negative response to everything that's been happening. Mm-hmm. And this is the consequence of that.
Yes.
And so her basically mental illness murdered her. Yes. An accident.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. But yeah, there's like a Final Destination death. A giant fucking shard of glass impaling her in her own bed. Mm-hmm.
Really, really slowly.
Yes. And God damn, that reminded me of Midnight Mass.
Yes.
With that girl's face covered in glass and you see the red and blue lights shining on her face. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Perfect fucking like
visual.
Perfect visual. Mm-hmm. The next episode, what's it called?
The Pit and the Pendulum.
All I could think of is like that documentary watch, Red, White, and
Nightmares in Red, White, and Blue.
Yeah. And they play the trailer
for Pit and the Pendulum.
The pitch and the pendulum. And it's like it's all Vincent Price.
Yes, it is.
Overacted.
Vincent Price never met an Edgar Allan Poe story that he did not want to make a movie, and God bless him for it.
And this one, I don't want to go into the story of Pit and Pendulum, but like in this one, Broderick gets everything he fucking deserves.
It's just not slow enough.
No.
It's my opinion.
So in this one, we find out that what he's been doing is he's been hot-shotting his wife with a combination of Oxycontin and basically like a depressant.
Yes.
So she's taking uppers and downers at the same time. Same thing that killed Chris Farley. Mm-hmm. And he's hot-shotting her the whole time to torture her because he knows why she was really there.
Yeah.
In a way. But he's just doing it for malice and forethought.
Yeah, he's absolutely certain that she was going to have an affair with Prospero, even though she wasn't certain she was going to have an affair with Prospero.
Yeah, so in this one, to kind of hurry it up along a little bit, he's in charge of destroying the factory or the warehouse where Prospero died. Mm-hmm. And he finally nuts up and goes there. Now, while this is happening, Arthur Pym says he's found Verna and he's going to go take care of her. Mm-hmm. Verna walks into the old Usher home, which I don't know if you've noticed. If you go back and watch it, it has 7 gables. The House of 7 Gables. Mm-hmm. So like if you count a gable, guys, for those who don't know, is an old architectural term for the little pointy roof above a window. Yes. That's all a gable is. Why I know that is because of fucking English literature class.
Because you drink and you know things.
Yeah. I need to stop the drinking part. But it's so like it's just Easter egg after Easter egg after Easter. You know, a British lit or American literature person would just be like foaming at the mouth. I mean, like, look at that one, look at that one, look at that one.
I love this thing so much.
And Verna walks in a black dress, takes her gloves off because she's there to do work. She's there to go to work.
Absolutely.
And fucking Mark Hamill kills her.
Yes,
and puts her in a fucking duffel bag, or in a body bag, and he's like carefully doing it. He's like, he hot shots her, and she falls down. He's wrapping her up like Dexter from fucking Showtime.
Yes, he is.
And like all this, and he turns his back, and she's like, that was fascinating. She's like, man, that was quick. And he just turns around, and he's just like, what in the blue fuck? And he turns around and the bag deflates. There's no body. And he realizes that Verna may be something else that he may have actually met before.
Yeah.
The one that made his story like legendary. And this is my favorite fucking scene of the entire fucking series. He sits down with her and she's talking to him as like a regular person.
Yes.
And she does the conversation from the bar. You've done some terrible things, Mr. Pym. And he's like, oh yeah. Yeah. And he's nonchalantly talking to a god. Yeah. That's technically what's happening.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or
the devil.
Yeah, the devil. And he knows the right thing to do in the situation. Never accept anything from this person.
Yes.
Because he's seen the true horrors of the world, and he knows that what she has in her bag is a lot fucking worse.
Yes.
And I love Mark Hamill. Should have got a fucking Emmy for this.
Yes, he should have.
Because the way he acts in this show is fantastic. He tells her, thank you, but no thank you.
Yeah.
I love that. And she's like, that's cool. I'll see you on the next go around. And that's it. That's the conversation.
Yeah, she disappears.
And she disappears, and he leaves. Meanwhile, Froderick is at the warehouse, and he has been doing coke this whole time.
Yep.
And he's manic as fuck. So he goes in there, goes to the warehouse to do one more hit a blow. But it turns out he mixed his cocaine with the shit he's been giving his wife. This nightshade shit.
It's a paralytic.
Yeah. And that's why she can't move. And that's why he can't have a doctor come in there, because he'd give her some shit to wake her the fuck up.
Yeah.
And so he realizes what's going on, and he collapses.
Yep.
And here comes Verna in her construction outfit.
Yep.
Because, master of disguise.
Absolutely.
And she starts, if you wasn't so quick, you would have noticed what you did. And it flashes back to him putting that paralytic in his little coke thing while he's just talking dog shit to his wife.
Yeah.
And I love how this was it's more of happenstance, really. But the way that collapses, it's a I-beam that collapses because they decided to demolish the building with him still in it. Because Verna said, go ahead, hit the button.
Yep.
Yeah. And so they're demolishing this building while he's still in it. And we see an I-beam drop with a piece of steel slowly swing back and forth.
As a pendulum.
As a pit in the pendulum. And it's making cuts on his abdomen. All while Verna is standing there talking to him while he's being split in half. Because he just snorted a shit ton of coke and paralytic.
Yep.
And so he's wide awake, but just can't move.
Yep. So he has to feel it all. Just like his wife has been feeling all the abuse and the pain that he's causing her. And that's his story of consequence. Prospero was, let me make, money and gain off the ugly side of life. And what happens? He gets horribly disfigured and murdered. Yep.
All right. Victorine was, let me skirt, the rules to create life. And then, in fact, I end up skirting the rules and murdering my wife. So everything kind of mirrors itself. in a fantastic way.
Yes.
I like this so much more than Midnight Mass, but Midnight Mass is like the Stephen King story if you gave him more money.
Yes, it is.
This is what Salem's Lot should have been.
Yes.
If Salem's Lot, take the same cast and make Salem's Lot within people, it's fucking fantastic.
Shut up and take my money.
I would like Sam Rockwell to be the dad.
Yes. I love Sam Rockwell and everything.
But going into the next one, so all the kids are dead.
Yep.
And Dupin has finally decided to, stay. Mm-hmm. All the while, Roderick's been drinking that special liquor he's had since 1980.
Yep.
And he's always like, "You sure you don't want one? Because it's going to get worse." He's like, "Roderick, all your fucking kids are dead. Who's that on the phone?" And he's like, "That's my granddaughter." And he's basically telling him, "You might want to answer that." He's like,
I really don't.
I think I'm all right. And Dupin's like, "I have grandchildren of my own." And we find out that Dupin has a husband, mm-hmm. and they have children, and they have grandchildren. Mm-hmm. And he's telling him, he's like, "No, grandchildren are very important." And this is where Roderick kind of has that heart to heart with him. He's like, "You should do that. I can't.
Yeah.
I know what's coming. Don't worry about it. Mm-hmm. But thank you." Like, and it's a very like serious conversation. Yes. But no, this is the end of the end. Mm-hmm.
The Raven.
The Verna episode.
Yes.
This is probably one of the best scenes I've ever seen in a series. Madeline goes to the house, their old childhood home. Mm-hmm. Sees Verna. And her and Verna have this heart to heart. Meanwhile, in the backdrop, she assisted the suicide of Roderick.
Yes.
And Roderick didn't die because Verna's like, "You don't get out that easy."
Yeah.
Because he's sitting in front of the wall where they buried that boy, that man, their boss. Yeah. And Madeline's like, "Maybe I could cheat the system if Roderick just dies of an OD." Mm-hmm. Not how it works. And Verna explains that to her. "You tried to change the rules of the game." That's what she would call tisk 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 tisk.
Yes. Tisk tisk.
And she tries to make another back alley deal.
Yep.
And this woman's like, no. And then she starts in. I think this is where we get the closest approximation of what Verna is, mm-hmm. because she does the monologue of the poem "City by the Sea."
Yes.
And she does. There's clips out part. There's like 2 or 3 parts that aren't in it. But what she's describing is, I was there during the rise of man, mm-hmm. and the blood, and the flood, and the murder, and the fire. And if you get a chance, please just find that scene, mm-hmm. because as you watch it, her eyes darken, her smile gets bigger, and she's basically describing the rise of people and how awful they are.
Yeah.
And she's been there since the beginning, because in the conversation she has with Arthur Pym, where she's describing, she's like, "When I first saw you on the edges of the Arctic and what y'all did to the Inuit family that were there." And she doesn't say what they did, but she had watched them, mm-hmm. and specifically Arthur, Mark Hamill's character, mm-hmm. and the face he makes is like, "Oh, bitch, you were there?" She's like, "Oh, you don't remember me?" He's like, "I do remember you. I thought you were a hallucination." Because we find out that she's, like I said, this timeless, immortal person, mm-hmm. who just watches, and sometimes shows up.
Yeah.
This is the monologue episode. There's a lot of monologues in this one.
There's a ton.
And we get the one where we see Roderick has kept all this Egyptian artifact stuff, mm-hmm. and Madeline's down there, and it's her birthday. That's why he's doing it. It's his sister's birthday, mm-hmm. and he's down in there, and she gives this monologue about life being a woman in the modern age and the corporate age and all this, and it's very fantastic. It's very well done. It's a little whiny on some parts, but it's nonetheless a perfect monologue. Mm-hmm. He drugs his sister because she's a bitch. And he does the fall of the House of Usher shit. Like,
Yep.
This
puts her in the basement.
Yeah, this is the real fall of the House of Usher.
Yes.
And Moon walks back up the stairs, and that's where we start from the beginning of the show.
Mm-hmm.
He's sitting in a burnt up house, his buddy. And here's the saddest death.
Oh, God.
So we find out through little stories being told throughout the series, Madeline has been telling her great niece, basically, Lenore, that, hey, we're working on AI. You put your thoughts in there, and we can basically make a version of you through AI. Mm-hmm. And kind of like a version of immortality. Yeah. The chase. Kind of reminds me of the Johnny Depp movie Transcendence.
Yes.
Where he turns into like a cloud.
Yeah.
It's a weird movie.
It is a weird movie.
Fantastic. But it turns out those text messages he's been getting have been the AI operating her phone to reach out to him. Mm-hmm. And all it says is it starts from a paragraph, a couple sentences, a couple words, one word, Lenore.
Nevermore.
But it's fucking horrific.
Yes.
Because the whole sentence structure just shrinks and shrinks and shrinks until the AI is just kicking out this one fucking word, nevermore. And he has just been holding it back the whole goddamn time in front of
because he knows.
Yeah. He knows that Verna put her down.
Yes.
But Verna talks to her because this is after they find Roderick dead and they find out that Moelle is still alive. And they rescue her and all this. And Arthur Pym's trying to corner her. He's like, hey, you got to say this. And he's like, she's basically like, back the fuck up.
Yeah.
But Verna tells her about the great things that come from her death and the survival of her mother. Mm-hmm. And that is probably the most heartbreaking part of the series because she's like, it starts with one. Then she saves another person's life and she protects another, and that person protects 20 more. That person does this. Millions to an incalculable number of what this spark does because I got to put you down. It's like, God damn. Like, yeah. To talk a teenage girl into dying.
And Verna's even crying when she tells her.
She didn't want to do it.
Yeah, she didn't want to do it. And Lenore is asking her the questions that anybody would be asking. She's like, is it going to hurt? She's like, no, I'm going to make sure you don't feel a thing. And she basically just lays her down on the bed and she goes to sleep.
Yeah. Nevermore. Another one that kind of goes unnoticed, unless you're really sitting down and watching, is the story of Roderick's wife, Annabelle Lee.
Oh, God.
We see her. We legitimately see her when they're burying Roderick and Tamerlane because those are the first two children.
Her children.
She loved Roderick. Loved him. And Madeline showed him, oh, no, he's a monster. Watch this.
Yeah.
Ta-da. And we always get a chance, like, oh, the children of Annabelle Lee. They say it in passing. It's really fucked up.
Yeah.
But it's so funny because it's Roderick of Tamerlane, But she shows up to their funeral and Roderick is happy she's there because he hasn't seen her.
Yes.
And then the camera pans out and she says, you poisoned our children, took them away from me with money and things. And as the camera pans out, we see the back of her head is blown all the way the fuck open.
Yes.
She had killed herself because Roderick took her children away.
Her ghost or apparition or whatever's there
has been there the whole time.
Yes.
And that's what breaks him. That's what's fucking him up. But it all comes to a head where we see that he brought Dupin there to confess everything, to lay it out on the ground. And the house starts to collapse. Well, Madeline comes out of the basement like with with those fucking blue eyes. Like, she has rocks for eyes.
Yeah, she's got crystals for eyes.
And she's going to screaming like a motherfucker.
Well, that's because Roderick says, I turned her into a goddess.
Yeah.
An Egyptian goddess, because that's what she always wanted to be.
She wanted to be immortal.
Yeah, and he's got this whole Egyptian theory of, well, if she's dead, I can build her vessel. That way, when she goes to the afterlife, she can use her vessel, and I'll turn her into a goddess. And this monster
goes barreling out of the goddamn basement.
Yes! It's so messed up.
And I like how the house is collapsing.
Literally
collapsing. And then Dupin makes it out.
Mm-hmm.
A storm is raging outside. He has the tape of Roderick's confession. He has everything he needs. The house collapses like Carrie White's house.
Yes.
But on a pole, he sees a woman in black, a silhouette,
Mm-hmm.
and a laughing. And then he blinks and it turns into a raven.
Yes.
And that's when I realized who Verna was. Raven.
Mm-hmm.
It's mixed. God damn it.
Yeah.
But yeah. So he sees Verna fly away. And he uses that information to finish everything out.
Yep.
We see at the end of the series, there is Roderick and Madeline's gravestone, and the gravestone of all his children and his granddaughter. And Verna shows place items of their death on each gravestone, and it ends. And it was perfect.
It was.
I will say this. We have not mentioned a special character in the show.
I was going to say.
Because, fun fact, this woman is kind of a no-name actress.
Yeah.
She played Juno Usher. Fucking hilarious.
She is. She's the only regular human in this whole entire show.
She's the former heroin addict who's not affected by the drug that Roderick makes.
Yep.
And she has to take a shit ton of it.
Yeah.
Because she can. And she's fucking hilarious throughout.
Yeah.
She's in Midnight Club, the other show that's on Netflix. And that's it. She's never been in anything else. She's an Irish actress, and she fucking nails it out of the park.
Yeah, she's great.
But yeah, that's Follow the House of Usher, guys. I hope you enjoyed our review. It's a 10 out of 10 for me.
Absolutely, same here.
10 out of 10. Frothing out the gash, if you will.
Of all the stuff to bring back up, why that?
It's hilarious. Alex is laughing.
Alex laughs at everything you say.
No, not the racist stuff. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
Fucking woke pussy.
Never more.
Fucking woke pussy. All right, guys. That's it. I hope you enjoy this bonus episode. I hope you enjoy all the episodes coming out. And I'll just let it go with that. No final thought.
You've been listening to the Something Good Network. If you liked what you heard, you can follow us on Instagram and check out the other great shows on the network. Link is in the episode description.